China's efforts to encourage people with disabilities in winter sports have been called outstanding by International Paralympic Committee President Andrew Parsons. How can the Beijing 2022 Winter Paralympics promote inclusion for 1.2 billion people with disabilities worldwide? What's China's progress at home in protecting the rights of the disabled? And how can international cooperation in parasports benefit entire society? I'm pleased to be joined today by Dong Jing, former official commentator for Beijing 2008 Summer Olympic Games, joining me in the studio in Beijing, and Professor Joseph Mahoney of East China Normal University, joining me from Shanghai. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. So the Beijing 2022 Winter Paralympic Games have brought 564 athletes from 46 delegations around the world, with a record number of women at 138. China also has the largest delegation of 96 athletes. From 2015 to 2021, the participation rate of people with disabilities in China in sports grew from around 7% to almost 25%. So, Dong Jing, what is the motivation of China to put so much emphasis on encouraging people with disabilities to participate in sports, especially the Winter Olympic Games?
I think China, upon its decision of hosting bidding for the Winter Games, and now the host of the Games are already ongoing, I think China is perfectly aware what the responsibility of being host for Beijing 2022 is about more than hosting the regular Olympic Winter Games, but rather the host of 2008 Summer Games and Summer Paralympic Games. And China is well aware that the winter sports is of equal importance, although the size is somewhat smaller than the regular Olympic Winter Games. I think China is well aware of this. Being a good host not only is about making sure that every detail of putting together the operation is very important, but at the same time, you must, motivate as many athletes as possible to first qualify, to clear the hurdle, the threshold of the Olympic competitions, and at the same time to make sure that the audience on the ground and also nationwide will have some personalities to follow. And I think China is already quite experienced working together with the Olympic movement and Paralympic movement, putting together a cultural extravaganza.
Joseph, it seems to me that there is even greater social significance to hosting the Paralympic Games than hosting the Olympic Games. Do you see it that way?
I do. I think that one of the things we have to look at is when we see the Olympics, when we see these remarkable athletes who are the best in the world, we tend to be too focused on a certain form of human greatness or a certain type of excellence. But when we we know that the Olympics and other big sporting events, we've learned how to look at the human side of the story, and that's very important. But I think with the Paralympics, what we can see is a mirror image of a humanity that we often neglect when we're looking at ourselves or we're looking around our societies. We don't always pay attention to people who are vulnerable or who are differently abled or disabled. And I think that when we focus on them and focus on their excellence and their incredible capacity, it shines a mirror. It's something that we can see about ourselves. We can begin to rethink ourselves and improve our societies closer to home.
There was one particular moment which went viral instantly on Chinese social media, which was when the final cauldron or the final torch was lit by a blind athlete who is also an official with the China Disabled Persons Federation. It took him almost a minute to put that torch in the right place because he couldn't see it, and he was obviously having difficulty fulfilling that task. But then there was a very spontaneous cheer from the crowd telling him, come on, let's go, you're doing great. Dong Jing, what do you think that moment has told us? didn't look orchestrated to me.
Right, it was indeed some nerve-wracking or a finger-biting moment for most people. I mean, people in the stadium and also in front of TV. And I don't think it was, for such an important occasion or ceremony, it was anything like being previously planned. I can imagine that Jiang Duan had practiced several times before the real thing taking place. And it was very, very nervous for himself. But the encouragement from the crowd played such a crucial role. And it just accidentally demonstrated the spirit behind the entire Paralympic movement and what we do to promote, the value of people with disabilities, that you don't give up. Although it is not happening as previously planned, but as long as you keep trying, and then the success is waiting for you.
Joseph, I don't know whether you noticed that particular detail, because it did strike me, and my impression was that a lot of people saw for real that the difficulties these Paralympic athletes face in their lives is real, that they cannot see like what we take for granted. And that was probably some revelation to all the people who have been watching, while they are faced with real difficulties in life and they are trying to overcome those. Joseph.
Yeah, I think so. Again, to contrast it with the Olympics, I think that, when we're looking at the Olympic Games, if we see a skater fall, if we see someone fail, then we have a very different reaction than when we see someone who is disabled who's succeeding, right? I mean, there's something, I think, that connects with us in a more profound way with average people, not just disabled people, but when you see someone who is struggling and then they do something marvelous, it's in a way much more humanizing than when you see an elite athlete who achieves something remarkable, or even when they don't reach their what we hope they would do in terms of their performance. So in this way, again, it's more humanizing, and it provides even more profound social lessons and things for us to reflect on as we watch these kind of events.
And of course, not just that particular moment, but all the scenes of competition, people who are armless, doing grand slalom and doing a wonderful job. I think it opened the eyes of a lot of people to the world of disabled people. China has, as a commitment to hosting the Paralympic Games, invested heavily, Dongjing. For instance, in 2020 alone, over 10,600 accessible sports venues had been built nationwide, 125,000 instructors trained, and 434,000 households home to an individual with a severe disability had been provided with home-based rehabilitation and fitness services. Will the momentum continue after the Games?
I am very positive, and I strongly believe so. I think so far the Chinese government, because it takes governmental investment, so much investment into this, and I think the government seems to be knowing what it is doing now. And so far, because China, after more than 40 years of first or second phase of reform and opening up and development, China is also looking for new directions of very different development, and sports involving a large part of the population of 1.4 billion. I think sports can provide such a direction and large space for imagination to get demographic participation. And such investment may be worthwhile and is turning to be paying off now with 300 million people practicing some kind of winter sports. And they are actually together as a whole program with other non-winter sports. And also people with disabilities are part of the 300 million and then more. So it is much more than showcasing the capability of hosting the games for the international arena, but also for the Chinese people themselves to find new directions for their life and career in the future.
What kind of challenge, because China has definitely made a promise to the world that it will further protect the rights and interests of disabled people. It has signed up. It was one of the first countries to ratify the UN Convention on the Protection of the Rights of persons with disabilities, which was adopted in 2016. But what kind of daunting challenges are there still? Because China has just finished the historic task of lifting people out of absolute poverty. It still has large areas of impoverished population. How do you see the challenges going ahead, Dong?
Yeah, when the IPC president mentioned that 1.2 billion people in the world are with some impairment or disabilities, I'm not sure about the accuracy of the number, because China has probably maybe 80 million already, and then the rest of the world would be only 50% of China. I'm not sure about that, but the number could be very huge. And once China has gradually found the right solution, and it would be remind the rest of the world to, follow or take as reference. And yes, indeed, after the Winter Games, China has a long way to go to comprehensively promote every, part of the life of families or households with at least one person of disabilities. And then, winter can be one direction. Winter sports is one direction. Summer sports are already very successful in motivating Chinese people with disabilities.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
But at the same time, the entire welfare system and social system will keep looking for new solutions.
Very briefly, Joseph, you have been living in China, in Shanghai, of course, for years. What was if I give you one sentence to describe the journey China has covered and the road ahead, what would it be in terms of increasing accessibility for people with special needs?
We've hosted a lot of disabled intellectuals and students at my universities over the years, and I recall 6 or 7 years ago, we were in a panic because the closest wheelchair accessible bathroom was 2 blocks away. And we've been working really hard to change that, not just at the university, but throughout Shanghai. And I think we're going to see those efforts expanding across China.